Wassail, beautiful people. So, we're off for a walk towards some rapids, and we have a lovely guide, Annie, taking us, and we're going to go up to see some promontories that are from the Mesolithic period. Lots of exciting stuff, and for this reading I need to just show you these rapids because that's what I was told to do. Also, I just want to show you how a holly tree cut my head open. But there's more about that in the reading. The image you're seeing here, the video, is of a beautiful rapids and waterfall. It's interesting, there was a big energy of the Holly King. We visited 3 kind of small hills, rocks that stick up that were once surrounded by the sea. And this area is associated with the Mesolithic period. There was a circle in the ground that had the energy of either a well, but more importantly, I was tuning into the sense of it being somewhere where seawater came in at the bottom, so a seawater well, so that the water could be brought to the surface and then dried into salt, because salt's a very important attribute to humans. So I shuffled the musical Alchemy of Astrology deck while standing there, and the only card that came out was salt, which surprised us all. There was a sense of possibly a trading post there, but also a space of birth. And that's a slightly more interesting thing with the information that's coming later. Even now, I'm seeing the rapids. There was an energy at the rapids which was to do with... See, I've jumped away from the Holly King, sorry. The Holly King, there was a beautiful, really ancient, 500-600-year-old holly tree in the middle of this rocky promontory near to this salt circle, and as we were maneuvering beneath it, somehow I moved, it moved, and it tore a huge hole in the top of my head. But the point being that in the old traditional cycle, Wheel of the Year, at the point of the summer solstice, the Oak King gives way to the Holly King as we approach the winter solstice in the Northern Hemisphere. And so holly becomes a very predominant wood energy, frequency, protection. There's lots of wonderful stuff you can read about holly, how it conducts electricity. It's now been proven that the spines can help to push any lightning strikes down into the ground, and it was used as protection around homes to stop lightning from reaching where we lived. So at this rapids, there was a sense of like two timelines: the natural world, the bedrock, the earth, the trees, the grasses, yes, gently moved by the wind, but the rapids are this rushing and this gushing of emotions and waters, and very much being shown how emotions can knock us totally off our feet and carry us downriver and even drown us in that kind of mysterious moon energy, which is the Selene side of the moon that we see, that plays with us, that toys with us. And there was something quite playful in the hacking of my head. Just, yeah, it hurt, and there was much blood, but we took oak leaves, very tender small oak leaves, and pressed the tannin into my head to help bind the wound. And that's interesting because it's in the oak card. So to go back, this energy of the two timelines is very, there's such scattered frequencies still going on with me, like, you see, and that's the point. The speed of the frequency, it's like we're wanting to catch onto this healed timeline, but actually the emotions are passing by so fast that we have to slow everything down to reach the point where the water almost pauses, the water almost freezes in terms of its energetic severity. And so that's what we're working on. Also, picking up lots of energy to do with the Mabinogi. And the Mabinogi are very early Welsh stories, mythologies, written in Middle Welsh. And there's part of the story took place just down the road from where I am at Harlech. And there's a beach there and there's lots of battles. But part of the story is about this cauldron of Renaissance. And this was a cauldron that was dug up by the giant king of Gwynedd. I mean giant as in big. Giants again. See, there's something about that being the frequency of connected to divinity. So this cauldron of rebirth in the story, it's used to resurrect soldiers, but when you're resurrected in the cauldron, you become mute because some part of your frequency remains beyond the veil. Almost like it connects you directly to some form of the visible silence, but without doing the work, and therefore in the visible silence there is no movement, it's out of time. And so something about that frequency, I think what I'm going to do is start to shuffle the cards and just see what we get, focusing on the visible silence, which is, I think, the moment when the veil, when you go through the veil, when part of you is in the divine frequency, there's something that slows down. Static 12. That's exactly it. All physical manifestations require structural frames to hold form. Atomic microfractals echo swell to cosmic tensile macro scaffolding holding static. So there's something here about a before sound, a pause bar, a moment within the visible silence where we have to adjust our frequency in order to encompass, is that the word? Encompass. To be able to both tune into and to receive, to become one with the greater giant frequency. That sort of, you see, I want to say King of Gwynedd, but it's actually more to do with the divine intention, and we are the actioned part. So the consciousness being huge, vast, Jotun. You see, it's interesting, what's coming through now is this notion of the giants in folklore are the remembrances of the time when we walked divinely. We were a bigger consciousness. Therefore, we were a bigger being, but not necessarily in terms of size, but in terms of intention and potential. And that's been shrinking for millennia. And then we have Flursa, flow, and this card, look, it has part of the cauldron on the card, which is where this rite of passage takes place. And it's 66, 67. And 666 was coming up yesterday in the frequency when we were on the promontory of the Mesolithic people, and the energy of birth, because there was a fire pit area that was shaped very much like a vagina. And there's something here. Oh, look, the two cards, the symbols, it's like the opening. It is birth. It is to flow from divinity into physical, static, cellular, organic beingness. Interesting. Really interesting. And there's something here about this cauldron where you have to close your outer desires and needs to connect to the energy of the heart, the emotion, the divine intention, and then open it back out again. This is so fascinating. There's also something about the early brooches that the Flursa symbol is based on, for being a circle where you twist it to undo the knot. This is opening in a different way. This is opening in an energetically divine, I don't want to say beyond human ingenuity to work this out, but it's kind of saying that early man's consciousness was, you're going to hate me for saying this, simplified. It's not that. It's deeply connected to the earth cycles, but this is talking about energetic simplification, like the frequency of the divine in its fullness just couldn't be encompassed, because so much, because so much of our conscious spirit mind was being taken over by becoming the kind of translation of our consciousness in the physical. It was a primitive energy where the energies of the physical world were so huge that they left little room at this point in human history for the kind of spiritual pursuits that we have more time for now. But once again, there is this message that we have to throw that box away, because it is a closed scenario. It is something that is not allowing the fullness of the divinity to unlock within the mind. So let's see what else comes. I'm wondering whether we're just getting background information here. I'm going today to Dinas Emilis, which is very important in the Arthurian legends, and some of the Arthurian tales are in the Welsh Mabinogi, show a very different Arthur. So it is something to do with how history is written, how history is written out for fear that the echo might grow louder and create change. There's something really important about that frequency. So let's just see what else we get from the runes. Oh, I see, that's so amazing. Kanafa. So where Flursa is kind of the energy of the rite of passage of a female becoming fertile and going through puberty, Kanafa is the actioning version of that, and it's saturated in blood ties. It's interesting that I had to give blood to the holly tree yesterday, and we've got oak. I mean, there's no holly card in the deck, but we have oak and tannin, exactly what I put on my head. So tannin-rich bark purifies. Interesting. So I was releasing sacred blood songs to invoke the magic folk living within the trees. Seek their moral fibre and question your own. They might not support all you thought true. It's very interesting. Let's get some ceramics. So here we have calc. Calc is to unanchor and anchor back in, and there's something about that blood sacrifice. Look, it's really important that we understand the difference between when we draw blood ourselves and when the natural world draws blood, because that's when there's magic, that's when there's esoteric veiled frequencies involved, and this is moving from one realm to another, one timeline to another. But there's something about this, you have to bring that stillness together to unbind. It's like all the emotions. This is, look, we talk about epiphanies, we talk about enlightenment, and enlightenment is often about reason, but there has to come a point in the journey when you have to understand that the gushing, rushing extremes of emotions that we feel are part of a frequency that stops us slowing down enough to reach a peaceful, visible silence. It's a message that keeps coming through over and over again, so that we might unanchor from being over emotional and anchor into being emotionally stable. And then we have 24. So Dej, the Dej symbol is really, really static. And the Dej symbol is hidden within like a mirrored reversal of the Kanafa energy. They're showing me you reach the still point and then you move the two triangles of that diamond shape to create the moment of purge, the needle point at which we move through to the new frequency. It's really strange. I'm not sure that this reading requires a musical Alchemy of Astrology deck. I think it's just Liffruma. What else would you like to tell me? Possibly, I was going to say possibly about the cauldron, because there's something about the cauldron which I can't quite understand. It's the cauldron of the Renaissance, as in to be reborn, but it gets destroyed in the end, because I think there's something to do with this death and rebirth that's a trap somehow psychologically and emotionally, whereas a re-death and birth is a completely different philosophical concept. So we have Ripian, to ripen, to mature. Yet to ripen is to become emotionally stable. growing by knowing that all are entitled to passions without judgment. And that's really such an important thing. You're going into this stillness, you're stopping the rapids, the movement of the emotions, you're pausing everything. And in that moment, the only person you can judge is you. It's about your growth. We must all grow generously wise. This is a very divine moment. Standing on the threshold of the hierogamos, of the divine marriage, of the energy where you no longer judge others. And there's a really important frequency coming through, which, yes, it's sacred, and yet in all the most sacred places that I visit, I hear laughter. Because once you've reached peak sacredness, maybe that's a way of putting it, once you've reached that point, that's when you begin to really become thrilled and enlivened by the total pleasure of being divinely human. It stops being snobbishly sacred in some way, arrogantly sacred. It stops the spiritual egotism. And here now, I'm hearing nothing but laughter, clapping, treadle, the golden path, walking with well-intentioned footsteps, a racing pace in haste to reach a destination punctures the soul's purpose. It punctures the soul's purpose. That's this energy, this cauldron of rebirth is wrong. It's like trying to do the soul ablutions as quick as having a bath, rather than actually standing in the elements of the natural world and cleansing and purifying piece by piece, thought by thought, emotion by emotion. So on Kanafa, we have Earthclap. And if you look at those two symbols, you can see how they are an unfolding, they are an opening. There's something really important here about unfolding frequency, unfolding anything fixed. But you do it in a fixed space. You see, look, the trees are fixed, the plants are fixed, the rocks are fixed. On the whole, trees can fall, rocks can be moved by earthquakes. So there's something about all that is fixed within us is actually only held by the static scaffolding you maintain, we maintain, in this physical human incarnation. And it all has to be pulled down. The oak card is coming out with Urza, the past. So I'm being shown the visual of ivy, the tendrils of the past wrapping around us, the ivy trying to grow and choke the very essence of the oak tree. I'm not suggesting we go around and pull ivy from the tree. Both are living physical presence. But there's something here about this, the release, the letting of the old blood songs is overdue in all our lives. And now we're being given an opportunity to work through that. And then on Rippian, we have Gifu, gift, union. Union with our higher divine aspect. Our divine giant, we all have a divine giant, and then Treadle is coming out with witchcraft. What is witchcraft? It's witchcraft. Holly was often seen in the early Christian church as protection against witches. What were witches? Cunning women, women connected to the truth of their divine giant. So really considered as bad characters, because this is when these people understood and worked between here and the other place, through the veil into the land of the fairies, the other world, and they understood the divinity within. Whereas for the early religions around Jesus, there was this sense of worshipping the God outside of us. So it's really about the recognition of the divine giant within each of us, our true source connectivity. There's something here about this moving of the symbols, this locking down. If the divine is outside of you and not accessed through your own divine aspect, you are locked out from divine progress. So it's an interesting message, and on the bottom of the deck is Yana, to be entwined. Frigg weaves golden threads of love into the destinies of all beings, so we may tangle our heartstrings with others. Occasionally, these divine yarns wrap and wind together two souls of mirrored frequency, predestined emotional ties reaching back to the birth of love and singing with harp-like perfection. Let the sound of two hearts vibrate, entwined as one, and keep spinning a tender, talismanic thread for another in eternal ecstasy. So, let the emotions pour, let the emotions push through, and pick up one emotion and work out how to hold that emotion stable in your being. And then pick another. Do you want that emotion? Is it serving you, or do you let it go? Work out the emotions, the needs, the emotional needs that you have that will allow you to build a new structure, to walk a new golden path. And it will be blissful, it will be beautiful. But there's something about slowing everything down to achieve this stillness in which to transform everything. So, Wassail, beautiful, beautiful people.